Francis Scott Fitzgerald and The Great Gatsby. Francis Scott Key Fitzgerald was born in 1896 in St. Paul, Minnesota. His parents were Edward and Molly Fitzgerald, and they named him after his distant relative, Francis Scott Key, the man who wrote the Star-Spangled Banner. Fitzgerald attended school at the Newman School in New Jersey and later on continued his education at Princeton University. However, he dropped out of Princeton to join the U.S. Army, and while he was there, he started writing his first book, The Romantic Egotist. After the war, he married his wife, Zelda Sayer, and they finished his book together. They lived a luxurious life of moving from house to house, country to country, and even living in Paris. After he finished The Great Gatsby, his life began to fall apart. Zelda was diagnosed with schizophrenia and was in and out of mental institutions after. He became depressed, he became an alcoholic, and he also had writer's block. After 2 years of living in this state, he decided to try and revive his career as a screenwriter for Hollywood. He was successful as a screenwriter and was recognized for his efforts before his death in 1940. The book that I chose to read and research was The Great Gatsby. The Great Gatsby was written in April 1924. Fitzgerald's inspiration for The Great Gatsby were the parties that he attended and the people that he met during his time living in Long Island, New York. Fitzgerald put many themes in the book, but the main theme of the book is the American dream. The American dream, in my words, are working hard and becoming happy and successful with your family. Fitzgerald believed, however, that people changed the idea of the American dream from obtaining happiness to obtaining money. He uses Jay Gatsby, the main character of the book, as his example for the American dream. Fitzgerald spent 5 years of his life obtaining money, although illegally, to become known and have people know him. He did not achieve this dream because all he did was obtain that money. It ended up with him being unhappy, and he actually died in the end. Fitzgerald and The Great Gatsby have been important parts of history. The Great Gatsby was written in 1924, and it was popular for 5 years before the Great Depression in 1929. During the Great Depression, people lived in poverty, had no jobs, had no money. So why would anybody want to read about a book that has fancy parties and with orchestras and flappers and fancy ball gowns? Nobody wants to read about that kind of stuff during their lives in depression. However, when World War II started in 1939, people sent paperback books to the soldiers, and one of these books was The Great Gatsby. If people hadn't have sent that book to the soldiers, The Great Gatsby may not have been known as well as it is now. It became more popular after the World War II because so many people wanted to read it. Fitzgerald played an important part of history too. He named the Jazz Age, which we all know what that is today, and that's what he's most known for besides his books. He wrote This Side of Paradise, which helped teens learn to grow up faster. But what he's most known for is his books and how he did such a great job at explaining the time that the books were set in. So take The Great Gatsby, for example. The Great Gatsby was set in the 20s, and that's when he wrote it. He did such a good job at portraying the 20s in his book, The Great Gatsby. Fitzgerald and Gatsby aren't so different. Gatsby spent half of his life trying to obtain something that was nearly impossible. He tried to get all of this money so he could go from being poor to being rich and known. He wanted Daisy to fall in love with him, another main character in the book. He wanted Daisy to fall in love with him and leave her husband for him. Fitzgerald's not much different. Fitzgerald spent his life trying to obtain fame through his books and becoming an author. he is known now, but back when he was alive, he was not very well known and he wasn't popular.